What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. We just got done playing against Bournemouth, and we just played a horrible game, and I have a lot to say about the manager, about the players, about the tactics and substitutions. And I'm also going to touch on INEOS and Dan Ashworth a little bit about basically my thoughts and my fears going forward. In the second minute, AWB couldn't make a normal pass right up the sideline for Højlund. And that's when I knew this was going to be a horrible game. And then 2 minutes later, Casemiro makes a bad touch in the middle of the field, basically losing all the space that he had when he was getting that pass, and turns over the ball. And next thing you know, they're off to the races again. For the next 5 minutes, the team kind of starts launching long balls. We had 3 long balls in the next 5 minutes. We were not willing to build up play, even when their pressure wasn't that hard to break through. If you watch that game again, and I think some of us need to do that, you need to watch the game again, and you'll see our setup, and you'll see what we were supposed to be doing and how our team just really fails at basically advancing the ball through the lines. And we resort to long balls as soon as we start getting scared. Problem is that the long balls only lead to more turnovers and more of their players running right back at us. After the 18th minute, I think it was the 17th minute, Garnacho starts to not follow his man, and they just kept launching overhead through balls. So what they would do is whoever Diogo Dalot was supposed to man mark is running to the midfield. Diogo's following him, and Garnacho's fullback is taking off up the sideline. Garnacho would only track back until he was even with Diogo, and then he would stop. I don't know if that's because he's thinking about playing the offsides when there's actually that shouldn't be a thing right there, because Maguire, Kambuala are playing way farther back. Either way, they start launching overhead through balls, and Garnacho's left, our right side, their left side is wide open. And that happened 3 or 4 times after the 17th minute, because once they figured out that Garnacho's not tracking all the way back and he keeps falling in to that trap where all they have to do is make a small backwards pass to Diogo's man, who Diogo's following out, then the overhead through ball's on. And we gave the ball away literally even when we had numerical advantages. So when you look at a manager, when I look at a half, I try to see in the spaces where when we have the ball, in the spaces that we move the ball to, do we have numerical advantages? See, the reason why we get countered on all the time is because Ten Hag wants to play with a lot of numbers going forward. A lot of numbers going forward means that you should have a numerical advantage. So when we get into like the left corner we got Rashford over there, we have Aaron Wan-Bissaka over there. Sometimes Garnacho is going from the right to the left, and Bruno's over there. That's already 4. And we're usually only playing against 3, but their 3 just need to stay compact and in the middle, and then our players just make horrible decisions, horrible passes. I'd rather they just swung it all the way back to Maguire and started again, which would be okay, but they would make a horrible pass that gets intercepted, and then 2 players are out of position and the counterattack keeps coming. The way Ten Hag wants to play is front foot attacking football with a lot of numbers going forward so that we can set up those numerical advantages in these right and left hand side, depending on where we're going. But we can't execute. We don't have players that have a good first touch. We don't have players that make good decisions. You forget the touch thing. Even when we have players who are going to make a good first touch, like a Bruno Fernandes, he makes a dumb shit decision and the play is over. So, or Aaron Wan-Bissaka makes a bad pass or a bad touch. Or Casemiro, who today gave away the ball 19 times, I think. I was trying to look at the stats. Let me double check my notes. Casemiro lost possession 19 times today. And he's supposed to be a veteran player. Now halftime comes along, and I know a lot of people were upset. I saw it on. I'm watching watch-alongs at the same time as I'm watching the game. Well, not really. I just kind of have it on and I listen, and then I change from channel to channel just so I see what the guys that I listen to all the time. I don't usually watch-alongs. I don't like them because they end up kind of tainting my own thoughts, right? They like if you watch the United View watch along, which maybe I shouldn't be naming names, but if you watch their watch, I love those guys, by the way. I love every person that I'm about to talk about. If I didn't respect them or admire them, I wouldn't be watching their channels. So just because I'm going to say something that might be critical or negative about what they said, that doesn't mean I don't actually respect these guys. It's just my opinion of what they're saying or what they're doing. So in the United View one, you could tell Flex is fed up. You can tell Owen's fed up. You can tell they have no more patience for the style of play or just the bad passes or the bad touches. And I don't blame them. Neither do I. I watch the thing and I'm cursing at the TV. I'm getting angry too. But I have to take emotion out of it, and I have to go into logic, and I have to I always watch the game twice. I know that sounds crazy, but that's just how I've been since I was young. I always watch the game twice because I feel like the first time I watch the game, I'm way too emotional to actually really just be impartial and watch what's going on and be a good judge of what's going on. So you can tell that they're only seeing the negatives, even when we're moving in a shape that looks good. See, that's the other thing. The shape doesn't look bad. Okay, you're going to say the defensive line is way too far away from the midfield line. I agree with you there. Problem is, though, that's just the way this manager likes to play. This manager likes that. That's what he did at Ajax. His whole philosophy is that when we have those numbers going forward, we shouldn't lose the ball like a bunch of idiots. We have the numbers. We should be able to hang on to the ball. And if it's not on, then bring it back and start over. And because the back line's so far away, when you bring it back, you really stretch the other team out. They have to run all the way back to catch up to your back line. And by then, you should be taking better positions in midfield and start again, go forward again. Again, I'm not saying that's a great tactical plan, and I'm not saying it's a bad one either. I'm just saying that's the way he wants to play. And it's okay that he wants to play that way. Unfortunately, our players are not good enough to take care of the ball, respect the ball. The ball, they have no respect for the ball. If anybody's seen that documentary or that video, movie, whatever the hell you want to call it, take the ball, pass the ball, about the greatest Barcelona team to ever exist when Pep was managing there. And it was all about respecting the ball. Now, do I want them to keep the ball and pass it around forever like Pep's teams usually do? No, but respect it a little more than we're doing now. We don't respect it at all. You just give it away cheaply. Bruno Fernandes, that's why he drives me nuts. He drives me nuts sometimes. The way Rashford and Garnacho sometimes want to go one-on-one with the guy they're going up against, and you could tell they're doing the same trick. Hey, we all get mad, and we all say negative things about Anthony because he's a one-trick pony. Sometimes, like today, that's how Garnacho was playing. He was ineffective. He was ineffective on all his dribbles when he was actually trying to go past his man. Rashford, ineffective. Rashford's been effective a lot of times, but Garnacho is starting to pick up that trait. They need to learn how to play off each other. In Ajax, the teams played off each other. The teammates played off each other. Actually, this brings me back to another point later on in the game when we had a chance to win the thing in extra time. You could see Rasmus starting to do that same kind of bad trait. He had the ball at his feet, and he had Rashford right next to him, and he wanted to keep the ball with his back against goal with two guys on his back, and he ends up giving away the ball. This was not Rasmus when he first joined earlier in the season. This is now he's becoming more selfish, let's say, because he doesn't get the ball enough. And I don't blame him. And I said this a couple of videos ago, that our good players are actually going to get ruined if the Rashfords, the Brunos don't act selfish or dumb or do the same thing every single time. You got to share the ball. We were talking about last episode, I broke down what makes a great team. And one of them was technical trust. One of the attributes that every great team has is technical trust. You got to trust your teammates are going to have the technical ability and the football intelligence to see your run and play with you, play off you, play a pass to you, and then make a run to get the pass back. And it's okay to share the ball like that. We don't do that. We might do that once or twice a game. We just, that overhead through ball drives me nuts. And you could tell in the second half that Ten Hag was clearly signaling not to do that anymore. He was clearly saying, pass it around, run in circles. He was telling people clearly what to do. And Bruno was having none of it. Bruno literally told him, or shook his finger at him in a manner of like, we need one through ball to get us through. And this is what is going to lead to Ten Hag sacking. And it's okay if he gets sacked. I'm not all 100% for Ten Hag in. I'm not like, there's no Ten Hag agenda here. In or out. This is just about the team and us performing better. And understanding the real problems, the root of the problems, the fact that our players just absolutely suck sometimes, and there's no captain there. I don't care that Bruno's got the captain's armband. There's no captain there. You need a Roy Keane or someone just with a big personality that comes in and goes, shut up, and this is what we're doing. And you need that guy to be 100% on board with the manager's tactics. You can't have a captain who's not sure of what the manager's trying to do. You need the manager and a strong captain to be on the same page. And we just don't have that. We have spoiled brats. And so let's talk about the substitutions, because this is what I noticed that a lot of people online are also having a beef about. And I saw a lot of videos made. I'm gonna name drop, but again, I respect the people that I'm naming, or else I wouldn't watch their channels. I just have a disagreement with what they saw. What is it called? The United Stand, Mark Goldbridge, on his channel and on his Twitter, was very upset that Garnacho got replaced with Ahmad, and he wanted Rashford to be the one to be replaced because, and I get it, because I think it's because of Rashford's history. I wouldn't say it's because of this game. So Goldbridge wants Rashford out instead of Garnacho out and wants Ahmad in. Problem is, in that first half, if you watch it again, Garnacho was the bad player. Garnacho was not having a good game. I love Garnacho. I hope he stays with our team forever, and I hope he keeps learning and growing. The kid's only 19 years old. He can have a bad game. It's okay to have a bad game. It's not okay to have a bad game and not suffer the consequences. If Sir Alex Ferguson was around, he would probably give Garnacho the hairdryer treatment for how many times the attack from Bournemouth was coming down his side. So it's okay to have a bad game, and Rashford was actually tracking back his runner today. If you watch back that game, Rashford was tracking all the way back to the box. If Rashford gave the ball away, he stayed with his man until he got all the way back to our goal. And I'm a big critic of Rashford's. I did countless videos. If you go back and watch my videos, other than the last video, because I thought he tried hard against Liverpool. So other than that last video, if you go back and watch my other videos, I kept saying all I want from Rashford is to break a sweat. I don't want him to jog around. Just break a sweat. I don't care if you score, break a sweat, and I'll cheer for you. Today he worked hard, and I'm not going to be a hypocrite. He ran around. He didn't have the greatest game, but he put in the effort. He put in the miles, and he did. In my opinion, he had a good game. Not technically, not with the ball, maybe not decision making, but he put in the work to have a good game. Garnacho did not. Defensively, he did not. Antony, if he was on the bench, would have been the better option, to be honest. I like Ahmad too. I just think Ahmad needs to be coming in more in the midfield, because I think Bruno needs someone to put him on the bench. Maybe Ahmad's not that guy, but Bruno needs someone to put him on the bench. Bruno had a horrible game. I know he scored the goals, but honestly, his decision-making and his passes are driving me nuts. They're driving me nuts. That's not the way a Manchester United team is going to... We can't dominate a game you can't dominate a game without the ball. Jose Mourinho would tell you otherwise. Without Jose... I don't want to play that way anyway. I don't want to dominate a game without the ball. That's not That's not Manchester United. Dominating the game without the ball is not the way I want to watch my team play. It's not what I grew up watching, and it's just not what I want to see. Bruno giving them the ball because he's trying to send it every time, and then we all get mad at Rashford for not running. But honestly, some of those passes, I would just look back at Bruno and be like, "What are you doing to me? What are you doing to me? It's not on. If it's on, hey, by all means, send me the ball. get me through one-on-one with the goalkeeper. But it's not on. Stop doing it. Let's find some patterns of play. Let's keep the ball around. Let's set up a rondo. Let's do something else than this. Because it's contagious. If Bruno's doing it, Maguire starts doing it. It is contagious. I'm sure Ten Hag says it's okay and allowed, but he doesn't say every play. He was obviously on the sideline signaling to not do that, to hold on to the ball, to calm down, to keep possession, especially after it was 2-2. And we still did it. We still didn't take care of the ball. And plus, we don't have the players that can make a first touch and control it other than Manu. And Rashford has a good first touch, but that may be it. Maybe a couple more, but Casemiro's the one I'm really thinking about that doesn't have one. Now, everybody was also upset, including myself, by the way, that we didn't substitute Mount for Casemiro instead of Mount for Manu. Before that substitution, all the coaches were kind of standing around having like a huddle and a talk. They knew they needed to substitute somebody. I think, and I don't agree with this, but I think they got talked, or they decided to go with Manu coming out so that we still had some height, because we did give up a lot of corners. And Casemiro can't put his head on the ball on corners. So the problem is, I don't agree with it. I'd rather you play everyone short if they're the highly technical players. Honestly, I would rather have, again, to bring up that old Barcelona team that arguably is maybe the best team to ever play this game. Maybe. There are a lot of good teams. The old AC Milan team comes to mind. But Barcelona team's up there, the old one, with Xavi and Iniesta in the midfield. Even though you did have either Mascherano or Sergio Busquets in the midfield, right? Yeah, I think I'm right. Those guys aren't like these powerhouse physical specimen either. But they didn't need to be, because they kept the ball for long periods and didn't give up too many corners. And that's the way I'd rather play. I'd rather dominate the game with the ball. So I probably would have chose to take Casemiro out and put Mount in. But I can totally understand a manager making a decision to keep the strength in, keep an athletic specimen like Casemiro in, and take the young kid like Mount out. Like Manu out. Because Manu's probably not going to win too many corners, especially against a tough big team like Bournemouth. They're a tough big team. They almost scored off a corner. It hit the crossbar. And by the way, that thing I was saying about Goldbridge saying nice things about Garnacho on Twitter and saying that Ten Hag made a mistake taking him out, Garnacho ended up seeing that tweet and liking it. At least that's what I saw. I saw a photo of Garnacho liking it. And to me, that's not good. And I don't want... See, now you've got another player basically disagreeing with the manager. I know he didn't actually type up a tweet like Sancho did, but it's still a public disagreement by liking Goldbridge's tweet saying that Ten Hag made a mistake taking Garnacho out and throwing him under the bus or whatever it is. Ten Hag told the truth there. He was right. Garnacho was having a bad game, period. And Garnacho needs to learn from that, put his head down, start working, work harder, and next time track back better and have a better defensive performance. And that's it. Garnacho has all the makings to be a superstar, but you're going to have a bad game, kid. And when you have a bad game, you got to kind of hold your hands up and say, all right, next time I got to work better. Go watch the game at home, see where you made mistakes, learn from them, work harder. And that's it. Okay, that's all I want to say about that game. I don't want to talk about that game anymore. That's done. It's in the past. This season's pretty much over as far as I'm concerned anyway, but I'll keep watching and I'll keep analyzing, keep trying to see what it is our sporting director and technical director who are going to come in are going to see, because I'm sure they're watching the game. I want to see what they learn from these performances and what changes they make to our team. Here's my problem, or here's my fear. They end up sacking Ten Hag, which is fine. They have every right to sack Ten Hag. He hasn't had the performances that garner much confidence. If we're going to get rid of Ten Hag, it's fine. You can get rid of Ten Hag. But then we got to make sure we know what kind of manager we're choosing and what we're looking for. Now, if we're watching these games, if Dan Ashworth and Jason Wilcox are sitting at home watching these games, which I'm sure they are, and they should be analyzing it deeply, and obviously they're going to also have recruiters and everybody else working for them. If we're watching these games and we're thinking, hey man, we're giving up 20 shots on goal every game, we get scored on all the time, and we don't score enough goals. And we're thinking, let's get rid of Ten Hag, and we need to bring in somebody who's going to organize and make us defensively solid. That's priority number one. If that's priority number one, then we're going to end up with a Southgate or a Jose Mourinho type. And that's not what I want. I don't think that organizing the defense and making sure that we can protect our goal should be priority number one. Last season, Ten Hag himself, we had a really good defensive record with Ten Hag. This season, he's trying to play a little bit more front foot football and not hunker back and counter all the time. We're trying to play a little more advanced, and that's why earlier I was talking about how we have numerical advantages way up on the opponent's side of the field, which obviously comes with its risks. Now, he risks a little bit more than the usual manager who does that. Yes, Ten Hag risks a lot more. He only leaves 2 or 3 people way back, and then everybody else is around the opponent's box. Your job as a player is to protect the ball and don't give it up until we get an opportunity or come close to getting an opportunity. Now, getting rid of Ten Hag and getting somebody else is fine, like I was saying, but the problem is, or what we need to be careful of, is that we're not trading Ten Hag in for someone who's just going to get us organized, but then we're still going to have the problems of scoring goals. The problems of bad touches, bad technical players. We need to have a manager who's obsessed with having our players improve their technical play. And if our player can't improve, then that guy needs to go. Unfortunately, that's why I think Scott McTominay needs to go. Casemiro needs to go. I don't care that they're big bodies. We need to get someone in there that has a big body if that's a priority, but also someone who can receive a ping pass right at him in pressure and then make a pass. You're a professional footballer. Learn how to touch a ball. I don't care if it's coming at you fast. Learn how to control it and then make a pass. It shouldn't be rocket science, especially if you're going to play in the middle of the field. Especially if you're going to play in the middle of the field, you need to be able to settle a ball and make a pass. And we need to find a manager who's going to be obsessive about that. We need to find recruiters who are going to look for that profile and find a gem who's not going to cost 100 million pounds. So I don't know. Well, I think the kinds of managers I'm talking about are the De Zerbis and the Nagelsmanns and everything else. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if we can afford to do that. I don't know. All I'm saying is I fear that we're going to get rid of Ten Hag for something worse. And Ten Hag's actually not that bad in my opinion, although he takes a lot of risk. And these players are not good enough to risk it all with. The other thing that kind of, sorry about the phone. The other thing that kind of got on my nerves or gets on my nerves or worries me is that INEOS was so gung-ho about Dan Ashworth. Dan Ashworth hasn't done anything. He hasn't won anything. He hasn't done anything. I don't trust Dan Ashworth. I don't trust INEOS. For me, I feel like every appointment they make is an English one, except for Barada, who probably comes with such a good resume that they just can't ignore it. And Barada's a genius signing. Like, that's a great CEO to have, in my opinion. Every interview I've seen with him, everything I've seen written about him, the guy is a smart, intelligent businessman. He's not going to make bad decisions as far as I'm concerned. But that doesn't mean that his opinion won't, he's not in charge of football. So Dan Ashworth might make a decision that Barada doesn't really see much wrong with, and he's just going to trust Dan Ashworth to make this decision. Dan Ashworth is the one that we need to be concerned about. Barada's job is going to be to make us financially viable, make sure that we're getting sponsorship money in and we're making a ton of money. That's what Barada's job is going to be. And a little bit about football, but not much. Dan Ashworth is going to be the guy who's making the footballing decisions that affect me and you, that affect our mental health. And Dan Ashworth hasn't proven shit to anybody as far as I'm concerned. Just because the guy was in charge of the FA or was a part of the FA before and did something in the, I don't know what the hell he did for the FA, because England hasn't won anything either. So I don't know what, unless they're talking about youth setup stuff, who cares? How many academy managers are there that have won academy things and then never made it as a top coach? It's not a thing. In my opinion, it's not a thing that you can go, oh, he was so good with that, so he's got to be good. I think that there's a lot to do with the fact that he's English. I really do. That's the one thing about INEOS that I'm very nervous about. The INEOS like company, I haven't even seen anybody who's not English in the company, like Dave Brailsford, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the other guy that his partner, whatever, that keeps showing up. All English old white men. I don't know about you, but historically, that's never been good news. So, you know how they say, like, they want to get the best in class. We're gonna get the best in class of this. We're gonna get the best. Sir Jim Ratcliffe comes out in interviews and goes, "We're gonna get the best in class." Okay, best in class to me was whoever the sporting director is or recruiter is at Real Madrid. Argue with me on that. Argue with me and prove me wrong. Real Madrid's scouting director or technical director or whoever the hell is making the signings over there is the best in class. That's the best in class. Now, is Dan Ashworth better than him? Because I don't know about you, but Dan Ashworth's resume doesn't stack up. It doesn't. Doesn't even come close. Paul Mitchell, who, in my opinion, might be just as good, if not better, than Dan Ashworth. And Paul Mitchell would have been in the job already. He could have been in the job 3 months ago. Paul Mitchell could have started as soon as the INEOS deal got ratified. How come we didn't go after him? Again, Dan Ashworth just feels like a signing made because Dave Brailsford knows him and they get along. It feels like we're poaching from Newcastle ex-Brighton instead of poaching from Real Madrid. We did a great job with Barada. We poached from Man City. That's a good job. Now, for your technical director or head of scouting or whatever, poach from Bayern Munich, poach from Real Madrid, and I'll be convinced, yeah, these guys are going for, best in class. You poach from Newcastle, ex-Brighton, and I'm supposed to be impressed because his name is Dan Ashworth and he's had a couple of good articles written about him. He's got good PR. Dan Ashworth has a hell of a lot to prove. And we're going to find out if this whole headache of waiting for him for months and months and negotiating millions of dollars to get him to just start work is going to be worth it. Imagine if we could just pay 10 or 15 or even 20 million and get Real Madrid's scouting head of scouting or technical director. Which one would you rather take? I hope we're not making a mistake. I hope this isn't going to cost us another 2-3 years before we get it right. And don't get me wrong, I have no doubt we'll finish in Champions League spots next year. You bring in 2 center backs that can hold down the fort, which I know we're going to bring in. Hopefully a center midfielder who's going to replace Casemiro. And then a backup striker, or even the Ivan Toney rumors might be real. So you bring in Ivan Toney and then Rasmus is his backup. And then a left back who can play, who's got 2 legs and can run. Yeah, I have no doubt we'll finish in the top 4 in Champions League spots. I also don't think it's going to be top 4 anymore because I think moving forward, the Premier League will probably have 5 spots every year. Maybe. Depends on how good or bad Liverpool are once they lose Klopp. It might be tricky, but even if the Premier League doesn't have 5 spots next season, they'll have it the following season. But I also think we'll make top 4 next year. I really do. I think we'll have enough, even with... No, I was about to say even with Southgate, but maybe not. Maybe not. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe. If you actually watch my channel, let me know. I've only got 9 subscribers. I don't know how many subscribers I have, but it's less than 10. Can we make it 10? Can we make it 10? All right, thanks, guys. I'll see you next time.